Okay, picture this for a moment. The Baisar Valley, it's near Pahalgam, just this absolutely stunning meadow,
Hmm?
surrounded by these really thick, dense forests up in Jammu and Kashmir. It's the kind of place people go for.
Well, for peace, right.
Exactly. For the quiet, the natural beauty, you usually get there on foot or maybe by pony.
Yeah, it just has that vibe, makes you take a deep breath.
And that very serenity, that peaceful image, it just makes what happened there on April 22nd, 2025 all the more shocking, doesn't it?
It really does. Such a stark contrast. That peace and then violence.
Hmm.
And that contrast, that's really what we want to unpack today.
Right.
We're doing a deep dive into the devastating attack that took place right there in
Yeah.
Bison Valley.
Yeah, trying to understand the key events.
Exactly. What happened, how people reacted, the immediate aftermath, and maybe touch on the sort of underlying context behind this awful tragedy.
The goal is really to pull out the most important insights for you without, drowning in all the details.
Hmm.
Let's try and make sense of it. So where exactly and when? Let's pin that down first.
Okay, so it's Bison Valley, like you said,
Mm.
near Pahalgam, which is in the Anantnag district of Jammu and Kashmir.
Gotcha.
And the date was April 22nd, 2025.
And the immediate impact, just horrific.
Horrific is the right word. 26 people killed.
26.
Yeah. Mostly Hindu tourists,
Mhm.
25 of them. Also one Christian tourist, and really tragically, a local Muslim resident as well.
And that's not even counting the injured.
No, over 20 people injured on top of that.
Yeah,
Well, the human cost is just immense. You have to keep that front and center.
definitely. And the way the attack itself was carried out, chilling is the word that comes to mind.
Very. Reports say there were 5
Oh,
militants,
5. Okay.
armed with AK-47s, M4 carbines, too. And they seemed to specifically target the tourists.
And there were those really disturbing accounts about segregation.
Yes,
Yeah.
deeply disturbing, suggesting they separated people based on religion, even making them recite Islamic verses before opening fire. It paints a truly terrifying picture.
Just awful.
And then there's that almost unbelievable detail about how the first moments were actually recorded.
Oh, right. The tourist on the zip line.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Someone visiting from Ahmedabad, just ziplining, having fun.
And their camera was running.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Inadvertently captured the start of it all. The gunshots, the panic, people just scattering.
Wow. Just accidentally documenting the chaos. That's quite something.
It adds a very vivid, very raw element to it all.
Now, thinking about the location itself, Bison Valley, the geography presented real problems right after the attack, didn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a meadow, like you said, surrounded by forest.
Not somewhere you can just drive an ambulance up to.
Exactly. Only accessible by foot or horseback.
Mm-hmm.
So in those first crucial hours, getting help in, getting the injured out, huge logistical challenge.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
Yeah, you can only imagine.
But, amidst all that difficulty, there were some incredible acts of bravery.
The local response, you mean?
Yeah, the pony handlers, the local residents, they really stepped up.
Tell us about that.
Well, they used their ponies, obviously, but also made makeshift stretchers, basically anything they could find or rig up.
Just to get people out.
Exactly, to get the injured down to where they could get medical attention.
Yeah.
Real courage, Community spirit shining through in the absolute worst of times.
Truly remarkable. Okay, so after the immediate chaos, the focus shifts to the investigation. Who took the lead on that?
That fell to the National Investigation Agency, the NIA.
India's main counterterrorism agency.
Mhm. They took over the probe pretty quickly and started identifying potential suspects.
And who did they name? Do we know?
They did. One local individual, Adil Hussain Shah, from Anantnag itself,
Okay.
and then 2 Pakistani nationals, Ali Bhai, also known as Tala Bhai, and another man, Hashim Musa. His alias was Suleiman.
Hashim Musa. There was something specific about his background, wasn't there?
Yes, and this is quite concerning. Reports suggest Musa was a former member of the Pakistani Army's Special Forces.
Special forces. Okay, that implies a certain level of training and capability.
Definitely. It raises worries, about the kind of expertise involved, maybe a shift in militant tactics or even state links, though that's obviously sensitive territory.
And the authorities signaled how seriously they were taking this hunt, right?
Yeah.
With the reward.
Oh, yeah, a very significant bounty. 160 lakh.
Wow, 60 lakh.
Yeah, for any information leading to their capture, it really shows the gravity of the situation in the government's eyes. High priority to catch these guys.
But the security response, it wasn't entirely without criticism, was it? There were questions raised afterwards?
That's true. There were some reports suggesting that maybe prior intelligence warnings about potential threats in that area hadn't been fully acted upon.
Hmm. Specific warnings.
The details aren't always public.
Hmm.
Could be signals intelligence, could be human intelligence sources.
Yeah.
But yeah, questions were definitely asked about whether security protocols were tight enough or if something was missed.
Right. Okay, so beyond the immediate aftermath and the investigation, this attack obviously sent ripples much wider, domestically, internationally.
Oh, absolutely. Huge reactions. Within India, leaders from across the political spectrum condemned it in the strongest terms.
Prime Minister Modi called it shocking and painful, I remember.
He did, and vowed justice for the victims. Very firm stance.
And almost inevitably, this poured fuel on the fire of India-Pakistan relations.
Predictably, yes. Tensions definitely spiked. India pointed the finger at Pakistan, accusing them again of backing cross-border terrorism.
Accusations Pakistan denied.
As they usually do, yes.
Mhm.
They denied involvement. But it certainly strained diplomatic ties further. That whole dynamic just got heavier.
And what about the wider world? International reactions.
There was widespread condemnation internationally, too. Lots of countries expressed solidarity with India.
Like who?
Well, the U.S., the U.K., Saudi Arabia, they all issued pretty strong statements denouncing the violence. It showed that the world was watching and recognized the severity of what happened.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the local impact. Tourism is so vital for Kashmir's economy. This must have hit incredibly hard.
Devastating is probably the right word, just devastating. The numbers were stark. Reports mentioned over 1 million cancellations.
1 million? Wow.
Yeah, in the immediate period after the attack. And beyond that, a huge chunk of the government-authorized tourist resorts and guest houses had to close down.
How many?
I think the figure was 48 out of 87, so more than half.
That's a massive economic blow for the whole region, for families relying on that income.
Exactly. It gives you a real sense of the immediate economic fallout.
And what about the feeling within the local Kashmiri communities themselves? How did they react?
There was deep grief, obviously, but also strong condemnation of the violence. People were appalled.
Were there public displays of that?
Yes, there were reports of protests, shutdowns like hurdles in several towns across Kashmir.
It's a sign of mourning.
Mourning, yes, but also condemnation, showing that this violence wasn't something the general population supported. It affected everyone deeply.
Right. Okay, finally, we should probably touch on the broader context. Why might something like this happen? What were the possible motivations?
Well, some analyses, looking at the bigger picture, connect this attack to the Indian government's policies post-2019.
You mean regarding Article 370 and the changes afterwards?
Exactly. Particularly policies that have made it easier for non-Kashmiris to settle in the region. Some groups see this as leading to demographic changes, altering the identity of the Kashmir Valley.
And there are fears about that?
Yes, fears and resentment among certain segments of the population.
Yeah.
Some analysts suggest attacks like this could be a violent reaction against those perceived changes.
And didn't a specific group actually claim responsibility, at least initially?
Yes, that adds another layer, the Resistance Front, or TRF.
They're relatively new, aren't they? Often linked to Lashkar-e-Taiba.
That's the understanding, yes. They put out a statement fairly quickly, claiming the attack and explicitly linking it to opposition against those post-2019 settlement policies.
But then they retracted it.
They did, yeah, which is unusual. They later put out another statement saying the initial claim was due to some kind of internal communication error or breach.
That makes things murky, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Does it point to internal divisions? Was it an attempt to maybe sow confusion or perhaps avoid backlash? It's hard to say for sure based on the reports. It adds complexity to figuring out the precise motive and who was truly pulling the strings.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered a lot of ground here. A truly horrific event in, ironically, such a beautiful place.
Yeah, Bison Valley. The attack itself, the tragic loss of 26 lives, the many injured.
Then the aftermath, the incredible local response, the investigation, the suspects named, including the ex-Special Forces angle.
The diplomatic tensions flaring up again, the huge hit to tourism, the local grief and anger.
And trying to understand the potential context, the links to regional politics, the TRF claim and retraction. It's a lot.
It really is. A very sobering reminder of the human cost of the conflict and instability in the region.
So maybe the final thought to leave you, our listener, with is this. How does an event like this complex mix of politics, security failures, immense human tragedy, How does it shape things going forward?
Right. How does it change perceptions? How might it influence policy, both locally and, between nations? What are the long-term ripples for Baisaran Valley, for Kashmir, and for that ongoing difficult search for lasting peace and security?
Yeah, definitely something to reflect on.